All this week here on Viking TV, we are focused on a river. And today we are going to get close up and personal with the ship that will carry that mighty river's name, the Viking Mississippi. So who better to join us on our virtual voyage than a man whose creativity those of you who have previously traveled with Viking will already be familiar with. He is the interior designer, Richard Riveire. Richard, welcome to In Conversation.
Alastair, great to see you. It's lovely to have this talk. Thank you for letting me come see you.
Well, thank you for giving us your time. Richard, I thought we're obviously going to talk about the Viking Mississippi a little later, but I thought we could start by establishing some fundamentals, in particular, some design fundamentals. What exactly is good design and why does it matter?
You know, I think good design is very much like good in anything, right? It is a clear, simple, elegant solution to a problem. And I think that in good design, specifically, spaces that do come across as clear and simple and beautiful and feel authentic, they feel like they've come naturally out of something, do elicit, I think, an emotional response in people. And I think that is at its heart what design is. It's a reflection of culture and society and the way people relate. And maybe that's why I got into the hotel business, is in the sense that it was a way of really talking with people about how they want to live their life, how they want to interact with other people. And good design, authentic design, is something that makes all that happen, makes it all so much easier and so much more enjoyable.
And would you say that design is something that reflects what is happening in society, or maybe it's the other way around, that design?
Well, I think it's both to a great extent, but architecture does come back as an idea that is coming out with what people are thinking about now. And I think that's why we have fashion, right? Things that change over time are things that then get reflected in the arts in every possible way. And architecture sometimes is a little slower because we have to go build buildings and build buildings and things of that nature. But I think it really does work that way. You know, it's interesting. I was noticing this week that the European Parliament, the President of the European Parliament, announced a reestablishment of the Bauhaus. And as people know, the Bauhaus is sort of what usually gets credit for being the start of modern architecture. Started in Germany, and the idea of clean lines. What a lot of people, I think, don't remember is that came at a really interesting point, because it was the end of World War I, so the world had changed in that regard. But it also was right in the middle of the 1918, 1919 pandemic, the end of the Spanish flu. And architecture, modern architecture, came out in a way of thinking as a reaction to the Victorian era and the arts and crafts movement that came before it, as saying clean lines, open spaces, healthful living, a machine for living. Really interesting thought. And when they announced the reestablishment of the Bauhaus this week, I'm thinking, you know, this is interesting. It's kind of a reflection of what's going on in the world in other ways as well. And I think that's one of the reasons, quite honestly, that our work has always been modernist and ways of thinking about clean, simple solutions. But it's also about healthy living, and it's about not feeling closed in and feeling that you've got a whole world to enjoy with your friends.
Because I think what's exciting about the creation of a new Bauhaus, I didn't know that. That's brilliant. I think also, I don't know whether you'd agree with this, good design is something that many of us, we know when we're in it or around it or sitting on it or eating off it or holding it or looking at it, but we don't often know why. So we feel it, but it's quite hard to describe what actually makes
sense. Right. Yeah. Well, it's a trade secret. I really can't tell you. It's very simple, and actually, Viking is, I think, a brilliant example of this. Good design is about authenticity. particularly in work like, what I would say institutional work, like a courthouse or a theater. But in hotel sense, it makes ever so more important that people not feel like they're being manipulated. That was a trend for a while, that you wanted to have entertainment architecture and it had to do all of these things for you. Our version of that is to make a space that feels like it's natural and it just grew out of something. And in this particular case, I have to give all the props to Torstein Hagen. I mean, really brilliant hotelier, although he doesn't like to be called a hotelier. I really think he is. But, all the props to him, because he very much set a direction, says, I want clean, I want simple, elegant, good solutions to problems, right? Clean, simple, and elegant. And then it was up to me to sit there and figure out, okay, we need to come up with something that is authentic, and there is nobody I have ever met more authentic than Torstein. Tor is very straightforward and very much cares about his guests and is part of the world that he is in. Mm-hmm. And so we created a space that is very much a reflection of what he's about and how he feels that world works. And the Scandinavian aesthetic is, I think, very right for this time. And so all those things have come together, and it's been, gloriously successful. And he gets all the credit for that.
Well, we'll come on to those spaces and Torstein Hagen's input and your input into creating them. But before we get there, Richard, perhaps you could just tell us a little bit about yourself. Did you know, for example, early on in your life that design was something that mattered to you?
Well, I think, they say architects are born, not made. And I think that's right. My father gave me a set of Lego building blocks when I think it was my 5th birthday. I remember it distinctly. I remember it really, really well. And they became lifelong toys. I was always about building something and creating something, buildings and stage sets and theaters and all sorts of things. So I think, it's been buried in there for quite some time. I was more, I guess, meant to do it.
No, I've got such fond memories of Lego. Yeah, I love. And actually, I did for a long time. I did want to be an architect until I realized that I couldn't do the maths. But Lego, I loved Lego.
Maths either. I do know the difference between silk and wool, but we go from there. But I think it is one of the arts, and it's applied arts, and you're in a fine art, but I live in the applied art world. But it is, I think, a common yearning to be someone who is affecting the built environment, affecting the world and that we live in, and frankly, providing surprise and delight and wonder and joy to people in a hotel or resort environment is a great place to be.
Absolutely, yeah. So up until 2011, Richard, your commissions as an interior designer had never really included anything that floats on water.
True.
So tell me this: why did the chairman of Viking Cruises, Torstein Hagen, come to you then when he was looking for a designer for his new longships?
It is, it's obviously a little self-serving for me to say it, but it's brilliant of him to do this. We're hotel people. We do all kinds of architecture and all kinds of design, but hotels are a big part of our life. And we've been frankly working on the Beverly Hills Hotel and Beverly Hills, Los Angeles, and at the same time that Torstein was building on his office space in Woodland Hills, and a project manager put us in touch, and he knew both of us and started going, and then we had a lovely conversation with Torstein out at the Lowe's in Santa Monica on a Sunday morning brunch one, and we had I think we went 3 hours. It was a great talk about all sorts of things. But then they asked us to come and look at the longships for them, and I very, I think, famously at this point told him, says, Tor, I have to give you full honesty here. I've never been on a cruise in my life. I've never been on a cruise ship in my life, if you don't count the Queen Mary down in Long Beach Harbor. So it is, and he said, no. What I want is a hotel guy. And I think that is, in fact, the brilliance of it. The cruise industry, as I've come to discover, is relatively small. It's a highly specialized business. It's difficult to do in a lot of ways, but it's the same sort of architectural folks doing a lot of the work. And part of what Tor was after was looking for something that is a new thing, right? It's a new cruise line, new world. Needed to have an image that was not like other things out there, and so this was what he was looking for, was somebody who didn't know so much, and then he paired us with the fabulous maritime design firm SMC is our partner in every way, and they know the right rules, and they keep me between the bumpers, I think is the phrase. But it really worked. And I think what I'm personally most proud of is that what Tor and I created is something that is unique and very strong brand image for Viking. And it has been extraordinarily successful. I can't tell you how gratifying it is to see that Condé Nast and Travel and Leisure and Cruise Critic and all of these mass media markets do come back and look and recognize the fact that it's something new and special and quite wonderful.
Yeah, well, Viking is rightly proud of its Scandinavian heritage. Tell us a little, Richard, about how you incorporated that into the design of the to start with the design of the longships.
Right. Yeah, no, it's getting to know. In fact, I think people who've traveled with us, who've gone on long ships and have now gone on to the ocean ships and will go, into the Nile, into ultimately Mississippi and other places, will see that there's been a progression. It's been about us getting to know Torstein, getting to know the firm. The firm has obviously progressed. I think when I started working on the long ships, there were 20 ships in the fleet or something like that, and now we're closing in on 100. So the firm's changed and evolved, but I think it's gone in a way that is very pure to what Torstein is, what the brand is about. He and I very early on got together and came up with a set of five big ideas. What it means to be Viking, that it's about Scandinavian heritage, it's about nature, it's about craft, it's about residential modernism, and it's about exploration. Those 5 ideas all show up in every single ship to varying degrees, and some ships will discover the polar ships that we're doing now, the expedition ships that we're doing are more nature-oriented, but and the Star class ocean ships are more exploration-oriented. But it is, they're all, those pieces are there, and I think this is an incredibly strong approach to design and to branding. Is that it's firm ideas, a firm fundament to work on, and yet there's so many thousands of wonderful ways in which to express it, and new things that are exciting and wonderful for our guests to experience.
But I'm guessing, Richard, after that 3-hour meeting you had with Torstein, that you had to very quickly go and brush up on your knowledge of Vikings and Norway.
Very, very much so. Well, you just showed James.
Could we bring that up again? That image,
picture of the Viking Ship Museum in Oslo, which, quite honestly, is one of my favorite places in the world. I've probably been half a dozen times. But those ships are amazing. And when we looked at the long ships and started thinking about the bar and the Explorer's Lounge, the whole of that Viking ship is what came to mind. What's known as clinker, or a shiplap method of putting wood together so it doesn't leak, in a sense. And there's some real thought there in terms of putting that into what has since become one of our signature elements. There's a version of the clinker bar on every ship in the fleet, they come in different shapes and different sizes and configurations, depending on what the need of that ship is. But it's there in all of them, and it comes directly out of that. There's probably a dozen other elements like that are things that come out of a Scandinavian heritage, or come out of things that that Torstein or Corinna have thought about as something that's personal to them that then we take and spin off into something that becomes a real element in the ships. And I think that helps them hold together, but they're still loose enough that we can go lots of different directions with the design.
Yeah, I mean, those clinker bars are I mean, if you have no idea what the reference is, they're still very nice to look at. But when you know the backstory,
you want things that feel authentic, feel natural. Yeah. They also have to feel right for what they are. They have to feel correct to be something. But I think to quite honestly, I mean, you know this about me. We've had these conversations before, but to a great extent, I'm a storyteller. I think that a lot of ways of getting to authenticity is to come up with some background story that is about, something that you can peel off ideas and peel off inspiration from. So every space that we do has some story behind it. And that clinker bar lets you tell other tales. All of a sudden you can start talking about, what does it mean to be in an explorer's lounge? How can we reference other explorers? What kind of ships did they go in? And that just opens up a whole world of places to design ideas to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, Richard, I'm going to start throwing in some questions because they're stacking up on my left here. One of them you more or less answered. It's from Madeline in White Plains. Madeline, hi, good to know you're watching. She says, I have observed much of the design on the Viking ships have a hidden story. Is storytelling part of good interior design? Thank you for an interesting talk. Yeah. Well, I'll let you. I think you've pretty much said
Madeline's exactly right, and stories, to my mind, are real gold in terms of it makes it easier, frankly, to do the design process. But even so, I think that one of my fundamental thoughts about resort architecture in general is that it's easy to get that wow on the first day. You go into a hotel in Hawaii and there's the Pacific Ocean in front of you and it's amazing and it's great. And you're feeling really good about it, but you're there for a week, 2 weeks. And by about day 4 or 5, the ocean's still beautiful and it's still there, but it's not quite the wow that you'd had that first day. So what I like to do is come in and find those moments that you can discover on day 4 and day 7 and day 12 that you didn't see the first day. But by finding them, then you get a new wow. You get a new something fun that's interesting to look at, something that gives you a new taste or a new sense that there's more depth to the space than just that one big move. So every ship you go through, look close, Madeline, because there are going to be things that may not have instantly come up, but there are going to be fun things to discover, and I think that's what makes interesting when you're in a space on vacation.
It's interesting hearing you talking about the wow factor. I had last year I was in Vietnam in a very expensive hotel, and it was exactly as you described. It had this enormous, way over the top wow factor as you arrived, went up to your room. But by day 3, it was 2 dimensions. It was just 2 dimensions, and so I think we all agree that design with a story behind it is more interesting. Stephanie in Pasadena. Hi, Stephanie. She says, my brother is a structural engineer, and I'm always fascinated listening to him talk about structural designs and the variables taken into consideration. How do you change, Richard, your thinking from structural design to a structure on land versus river?
Oh, yes.
And better yet, versus ocean. So that's
actually really perceptive to think about. The difference between a building that you do space inside of, it doesn't move, it doesn't change. You get the sun's on one side and it goes to the other side at the end of the night. But it's a stable thing. But ships are a very large mechanical device. It's a moving object. It's incredibly complex in the way it goes, and it's been highly refined over centuries, right, of sailing, millennia of sailing, and they are their own creatures in many ways. There's a lot of things that we have to worry about in ships that we don't have to worry about in land-based. The regulations involving, the fire resistance of materials, the weight of things is obviously a huge issue. I can recall many times Viking coming back to me and says, "Well, the ship's got to go on a diet. We're too heavy. We've got to figure out how to do things in a little bit lighter way." So it makes some sense. Perhaps the most remarkable of those are the long ships. The long ships, if you think about them, are quite amazing in that they are designed to fit precisely in the locks of the inter-European waterway, going from the Danube to the Rhine. They're exactly that long and exactly that wide, and they can only be as high as bridges are on the to get that we have to get under if you go through the Czech Republic or someplace. So you're constrained from the get-go about how big the hull can be, and everything has to fit inside. Inside that amount. So
Richard, one sense, James, can you pull up that picture of the longship? Very brilliantly, Richard. I managed to think of this ahead of you, so but I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's really true. I mean, I've not seen that picture, but that makes.
I mean, it's just that's 6 inches either side.
We clear it by that much, and of course, it fits well. You want to have all the space in the world. I mean, as architects, we want to provide everything for everybody, but we do have to live within this envelope. So. I think one of the first things I had to think about in terms of shifting from hotel design to maritime world is your sense of scale changes, right? You don't have the height, you don't have the amount of space that you might have in a Four Seasons or something of that nature. So we look at thinking of things in 7/8 scale, maybe, that you start using a lot of tricks of the architectural trade to make that work for you. And part of that is, I think people have particularly gone through the, sort of the Star class ocean ships. There's grand and lovely spaces, but there's also very intimate spaces. But there is a sense of always being able to move through a space, that you're never feeling closed in. There's quite honestly a fairly extensive and I think rather clever use of mirrors in the right places that visually break down corners and expand your way through the ship, that you never feel like it's quite as small as it actually is. We do work at that. We work at it hard, and frankly, to Viking's credit, one of the very first decisions that was made for all of our ships is that there's going to be relatively more public space to private space, more open spaces for people to be rather than cabin spaces, to give you that sense, give you a very different experience of being on a ship, because there's simply a lot of places for people to go.
Because I've read in an interview you gave to a magazine once that you are, like me, slightly claustrophobic, and yes. You quite like the idea of knowing that in a small space you're going to go through to.
There's a way to get out, right?
There's a way to get out. Yeah.
But I think that's interesting. It also plays into the resort architecture theme as well, in that there's always something wonderful to see around the corner, right? If you know that you can go somewhere, that you can go see something, that if I just keep going, I'm going to find something really, really cool and wonderful to look at. That's part of what guests do on holiday. They want to explore and explore their ships, explore their home for the next 10 days or whatever. And so I like that, the idea that you're going from space to space, and that there's always something fun to see around the corner. There's always going to be ice.
So after a few years, the long ships led to the ocean ships. And did this signal a change in the design concept, or was it just a continuation but on a bigger scale?
Well, both, I guess, is a strange answer to that question, but it is an evolution. As I was saying before, we've gone through. We're looking at the expedition ship there. But as we go through this, it's been a process. But like I said, we've tried to be true to our roots, true to our brand. The brand is solid and strong, and there is no greater champion than Tor and I, and making sure that everything feels like it's correct. It feels Viking-like, and we do really rely. Tor is the great thermometer there, making sure that we're headed down the right the right direction to that end. So it's a bit of an evolution. It's a bit of new things come along. Hotels are a bit about surprise and delight, and we want to do that. But it is, I think, as we go to the Mississippi, people will recognize a lot of things from the ocean ships and from the long ships. They may have been twisted and moved in a new way, and there are some things we frankly pick up lock, stock, and barrel and use again because it's successful and it really works, and people do have great love. And then we add in new things as we go along.
Well, I mean, for myself, one of the standout successes with the ocean ships has been the combination of large, free-flowing open spaces and small, intimate little corners where you can sort of curl up and be alone if you want to. And I think that works particularly well. I'm thinking of areas like upstairs at the Explorers Lounge on the ocean ships. People who've sailed on them will know what I'm talking about, which is a lovely place to go and hide up there.
Yeah, no, it's deliberate. It's deliberate to think about that. In fact, I'm very gratified when I look through comments on Cruise Critic or whatever. That's one of the things that comes up fairly often is, I feel like I can get away. I feel like I can sit by myself and read a book and watch the ocean go by or watch the riverbanks go by, and that's what you want. You want to be able to experience all of life, right? You want to have the private times, and you also want to have the times when you're with people and it's exciting and it's fun and it's social. Yeah. And if you're doing just one or the other, not so much, right? That doesn't get you as great an experience.
I mean, there's been many times when, for example, on a sea day on one of the ocean ships, I walk around the ship and wonder just where is everybody? I mean, is there something going on I don't know about? And actually, no, there isn't. It's just the way the space functions, and that's a delight. Yeah. So, Richard, as I said in my introduction, this is Mississippi Week on Viking TV. So let's have a look at the ship. We'll have a little video, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Some facts and figures, because a lot of people will want to know. The Viking Mississippi will start sailing in August of 2022. She will carry 386 guests and sail between New Orleans and St. Paul. So, Richard, question for you. Would it be fair to say that the Viking Mississippi is a hybrid of the long ships and the ocean ships?
With some of its new stuff too, I think is really the answer. But as I was saying earlier, it is an exploration. It is a continuation of some thoughts, but it is its own beast. And I think people that have sailed with Viking before will recognize lots of parts of it. Whether you've gone on the long ships or you've gone on the ocean ships, there are pieces that are there that will look familiar to you. It'll feel like it's the Viking that you've come to know and love. Certainly, the crew and the way we deal with operations and itineraries and the glorious food and all of that stuff will be very, very recognizable. And I think a very different experience than people have had. Mississippi is an amazing, I'm an American, so I can say this, I guess, but it's an amazing river, an amazing place with an incredible degree of history and quite interesting and quite wonderful geography, and just the natural world of it is quite lovely, and a lot of opportunities to bring that to Viking. Most of our ships for Viking to date have been, worldwide. For in the case of the ocean ships, those ships go all over the world, and the long ships do much of Europe. This ship, the Mississippi ship, is perhaps a little more located in place. You know, it's that authenticity thing I keep talking about. But this is an American ship, and so we've taken Viking, and there's a little layer of Americana kind of woven into that. Quite interestingly, and I don't know that many people know this or have thought about it, but the largest collection, that's not maybe the right word, but the largest grouping of Norwegians outside of Norway happens to be in Minnesota. You know, and it's at the headwaters of the headwaters of the Mississippi. You know, in my career, I started doing furniture design for a firm in Minnesota, and the Scandinavian culture was very strong there and very, very much a part of it. So what I'm interested in are those kind of stories, the stories that not only talk about what is it like to be in the American South, and what is it like to be in in Memphis and working your way up the Mississippi, but the stories about the Norwegian diaspora to Minnesota is quite fascinating as well, and things that we can bring that bit of culture, that bit of connection into our architecture for the ship, and I think it'll be even more interesting.
Because I was wanting to ask you about the culture of the Mississippi, and just take us through the kind of what kind of research isn't the right word, but how did you soak yourself? Did you know the southern states well, or did you spend time down there? How did you absorb that culture that you could then translate into design?
Well, I think the United States is it's a wealth of riches in that regard. You could be born and live here. I was born and raised in Texas, but you can be born and lived here and not know everything as well. So I think what we look for are those things that do have stories that are real, that are connections to what Viking is about, to what the ship is about, and what our brand is about, quite frankly. And we try to pull those in here. But yes, research is huge in what we do. Every ship. That's how we get the level of detail into these things that that get you that day 4 and day 7 kind of surprise. Have to come out of something. So we've looked at a lot of different things on the ship to get to kind of that point. One of my thoughts, and I may be, I don't think I'm letting too many cats out of the bag here, but we'll start anyway. There is actually some new elements on this ship that I'm very excited about. The River Cafe.
Well, hang on. Let me stop you right there. We're coming. We're going to go.
And I jumped ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you jumped in the gun there. Yeah, I'm going to throw in another. I got some lovely questions here. One is from Mike in Montclair. And Mike says, "Hi, Richard. I'm thrilled to see our host today. Since I booked this cruise last April for September the 17th, 2022. I guess she means. I hope I can make it. I will be 90 years old then, and it'll be my 11th Viking cruise. And that's sweet. Well, we look forward to welcoming you, Mike. That's great. Kyle in Houston says, we are very excited to see the launch of Viking in the United States. Richard, having overseen the interior architecture and design for so many ocean and river vessels, what would you say is the main difference and or obstacle between the two when it comes to execution of these ships? I think you've kind of gone there a bit, Richard. You kind of go ahead, please. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say there. It's interesting. We talked earlier about ships being, these moving mechanical devices in a sense, but if you think about the environment that we go to is wildly different. The rivers in Europe versus ocean environment. Two opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of the types of weather and the types of sea that we sail in. Mississippi is interesting as well in that it does its own characteristics. It varies wildly in terms of height. The amount of water or the amount of rain you get in the northern United States, that all flows through to the Gulf of Mexico, and water rises can go up and go down. And it is an incredibly wide river. Obviously, it's a lot of water, and it's moving in interesting ways. So you don't get the wave action and the things that you might get on the ocean vessels. On the other hand, it's a much different experience than the experience that you have on the rivers in Europe, which tend to be a bit smaller. So I think it's a good question from Kyle, and I think that what you'll find is that every ship gets tailored in its own way to be something that really does work for us.
Well, so we've already said the ship will feel familiar to people who've already traveled with Viking, but there are innovations, and one of those innovations will be, as you mentioned earlier, the River Cafe. Just take us through it. What is the concept of the River Cafe?
This we've always enjoyed, al fresco dining with Viking, and the idea of the aquavit terrace on both the long ships and on the ocean ships goes another step here in an interesting way. The River Cafe is another venue. It's a more casual dining environment. It's something that I think will be a lovely alternative to the more formal service that we have in the restaurant. And the thought here is this is a little bit of that Americana. I guess I was always thinking about my grandmother's front porch. Big wide front porch overhangs a ceiling fan up at the top, and enjoying the evenings with the fireflies going by and listening to the baseball game on the radio is a great memory of mine. And I think having that kind of experience here is something that happens. What you really can't see in the image that James has put up is that all of the windows on all the sides and the back all open up completely, and we lead out to a very, very, very large, expansive deck on the back of the ship. So my hope is that it does feel a little bit like my grandmother's porch, even to the swing chairs, that kind of thing are there. So little references to maybe the American South do show up there, but I think it'll be a fun and exciting way. It takes the aquavit terrace maybe a bit further than we might have gone on other ships. Should be a good thing.
Because we did get a question that came in, I'm just looking for it right now, which kind of relates to this. Francis in Corpus Christi asks, she says, can we tour the galley too? And and I think the answer to that is pretty much yes, isn't it?
Yes, actually, Francis, I don't know if you've seen things ahead of time, but it is quite interesting. We're going to a new concept for the restaurant and all the ships, to an open galley. On the long ships, the galley sits in the bow underneath the bow of the ship, and food comes out, but you don't really see it prepared. But the World Cafe on the Star class ships has been very, very successful because you can talk to your chef. He's making the eggs the way you want them to be, and you can see the food being prepared. And we want to take that even a step further. So actually, all the ships that we're doing now, the restaurant does end up with an open galley, and you can look at and you can talk with the chef, and you can see. Anthony's created such amazing menus, fresh produce and great ingredients, and it's worthy of being shown. Viking has the best food at sea, no doubt about it, and it's worthy showing it. So we're looking at it as an architectural advantage, to use that as part of the experience of going to the restaurant. And galleys, quite by the way, just from a technical matter, the galleys on our ships, we do ask a lot of them. We have a wide and varied menu. Lots of different cultural influences and different things that show up. So the amount of equipment it takes to produce the quality of the food that Viking is known for is all there. So the galley spaces are quite large, quite special, I think, in terms of the equipment that's offered. And we put it on show. You're going to see it. And I think as we start to look at this ship and other ships that are coming, you'll see that we're really taking an approach of making certain that the guest relationship to the crew gets strengthened and strengthened and strengthened. The Vikings crew is the best in the world by far. And this is common comments from everyone, is that they are talking about how friendly the crew is, how helpful, how service oriented they are. And we're doing that. So as you look even at the clinker bar on the Mississippi ship is actually round, and you can go around it. You can see it. You can walk more easily up to your bartender. The open galley, you can talk to the chef. So it's all about forming those relationships between the guest and the crew, that we're trying to break down all of the architectural barriers between guests and crew. And so they can have those conversations, and they can feel like they've made friends, that they are more deeply embedded into the experience, which is what I think makes an interesting voyage, interesting holiday.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I've experienced that. I'm thinking of particularly the World Cafe on the ocean ships, and that there's something quite reassuring about watching the guy or the lady,
seeing the guy making your food, right?
And also, but often you'll strike up a conversation, and out of that will come friendship, or
very much.
And you'll build on it every day, and that's a lovely
thing. To
be
honest, our returning guests oftentimes find crew that they've known from other ships or other voyages in the past, and they remember each other, and I think that's just spectacular, because it creates that sense of connection. One other thing, just to put a teaser out there a little bit, since you mentioned the World Cafe and we're talking about open galleys, as we look at putting the expedition ships together, I think we're going to see something pretty wonderful happen to the evolution of how the World Cafe goes. So I'm just going to lay that out as a little bit of a tease, but there's going to be something.
You got so good.
Very excited. Particularly Stephanie in Corpus Christi will find it really quite interesting
excellent. Yes,
about how we deal with galleys. It's
good
quite
on you, Stephanie. Yeah. Well, that's interesting, because Barbara in San Diego says, "Can you tell us more about the Viking expedition ships? Did you also design them?"
We did, and again, let me say again, it's a collaborative effort. There's a lot of people doing the design work, but yeah, we are. It's essentially the similar team to the team that did the Star Class ocean ships, and I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to come and go through that one with you. As I said, it is an evolution in the Viking world and Viking brand, and specifically one for doing, I have to say, from an architect's point of view, the itineraries for that ship are unbelievable. I'm here in Chicago now, looking out on the lake, and we are, the Great Lakes, I think, are going to be one of the most spectacular itineraries that Viking offers. It's such an interesting collection in the natural world, in the world of looking at things that I think most people don't really recognize, the amount of wilderness that is still in the United States, and frankly goes largely unexplored. And these ships are going to be designed to go do that in a way that is, I think, going to be absolutely amazing. And so as we've looked at the expedition ships, they're very much about the natural world. They're very much about this sense of going out to seeing things that not a lot of people in the world have been given the privilege of seeing. So we'll get to that. But the Mississippi does it from the other end. In fact, I've been trying to find ways of talking to Tor. Maybe we can connect the Mississippi and the Great Lakes.
Yes, just build a huge canal.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, here's just a thought, getting back to the Mississippi, which is a project in a way a little different from other Viking projects, in the sense that it's been arranged as a partnership with an American company. But I assume that the key input to the design is still yours and Viking's.
Yeah, very much so. No, it's a Viking ship, and I think the joy here of working with a global company, like Viking, is that you do end up speaking with all kinds of interesting people around the world to put together a Viking experience. The Osiris that is getting ready to sail on the Nile in Egypt is comes with Egyptian references and folks associated with it. Still a Viking ship, looks like a Viking ship, looks like what you would expect, but it has an overtone to it that is related to where she is sailing. The polar ships, the expedition ships, in the same way, come about with a little bit different bent than the ships the Star class ships. So you do get these personalities that come about, and I think, quite honestly, I don't have all the good ideas in the world. I only have what I have, but what the partnerships that we do with people, the folks that we talk with are the team members on all of these jobs all bring together their own set of unique experiences and cause it come out as a better product than if you just looked at just me. So this is everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I said earlier, on the ocean ships, one of the places, my favorite places, is the upstairs at the Explorers Lounge. Yeah. Viking Mississippi will also have an Explorers Lounge, but I think it's not quite the same, is it?
It's not quite the same, and well, part of it is what I was talking about earlier. You can kind of see in the image there. You can see the clinker bar as this object in the room that you can now move around, and then I think you can see a little bit of the upper deck there, so that those who've been on the Star class ships will recognize some elements there that make some sense, and the view of the upper deck in the same way. What's even better, I think, is what's right out in front of this. This is a privilege we don't have on any of our other ships, but the bow of this ship, and you're getting a little hint of it there, is actually quite large and very accessible as a place to go out and be and sit in lovely lounge seating. And yes, for those who were going to ask, I'm sure somebody is there asking, yes, the rocking chairs are coming back, and the rocking chairs will be on the front of the ship. That's one of our elements, but it's a lovely place to sit. So we've got a lot of deck space here, and in particularly the connection to the Explorers Lounge, I think, is going to make this even more open experience, a more inviting experience than you get in the Star class. So you can think of it, it's almost better in ways, because we do have much more outdoor space.
Yeah, I'm very excited about the bow area. I mean, just looking at the renderings, I can see there's a huge amount of open space, and that bow area is particularly exciting. Yeah, we can see there now on the rendering. So
there we go. You kind of look and see this is an earlier rendering, but there is a lot of there's lounge seating and telescopes and rocking chairs and all kinds of things out there, and you can flow straight out from the Explorers Lounge into the outside, and then of course you can promenade all the way around that deck, and then of course the aqua terrace and the pool deck at the top are you're absolutely right, Alastair. If we're on a per passenger basis, we have more outdoor space on this ship than we do even on the Star class ships. So it's
really
quite a privilege. Yeah.
And just a question that occurred to me when I first saw this rendering was, there's a lot of space right up on the top of the top deck there that isn't utilized apart from the.
Well, you need a roof, right?
Well, you need a roof, but no, I'm just wondering, because on the river ships, that's a space that is utilized. So I mean, I'm sure there's very good reasons for this. I just wonder what they were.
It actually, yes. In this case, the Mississippi is not like the European waterways, in that we don't have that lock image that you were showing before. The size isn't a constraint that way, but there is something called air draft, which the height underneath bridges. Most of the bridges crossing the Mississippi are quite high up, and that's really nice. But as you get in the northern parts of the Mississippi, and particularly in a high water land, we do have a limitation there, a draft limitation that says we can go this high and not a lot higher. So we are going to use all of that space. We use the whole volume that we can, and we compensate by having, as I said, a lot more outdoor space down where you can actually use it. On the other hand, what you see up there is we do solar panels on the roof. Those carry a great percent, a reasonable percentage of the whole hotel load, or what I call the hotel load. You know, things like lighting and televisions and things that we use that the guests need for power for. Obviously, the power for propulsion and navigation, all that stuff comes from our engine systems, but
right.
the solar panels do help us on the hotel side.
Right. Okay. And going back to, again, one of the I think the standout successes, design ideas on the ocean ships is the way that even the staircases tell a story, and this continues on the Viking Mississippi with what is to me one of the most beautiful maps I've ever seen. Actually, it's a strikingly beautiful.
This was an inspiration to me. In the 1930s, the Army Corps of Engineers in the U.S. commissioned these maps, these studies of the full length of the Mississippi. And what you're seeing there, looks so the psychedelic color type arrangement, are all the various routes that the Mississippi has taken over the last 100 years. And so you can see how much this river has moved and changed over time, and quite wildly, you could say, that in quite wide swings of it. In fact, there are stories of sunken paddle wheelers that show up in a farmer's cornfield miles from the tens of miles from the Missouri or the Mississippi, just simply because that's where the river was at the time when the river sank, when that ship sank. So I got fascinated by that drawing. I thought this was really interesting to see and to think about. So you're right. Stairs to me are much more than a place of getting from one deck to the next. Mm-hmm. I think there needs to be something there that is interesting and maybe even enriching or edifying in a sense. So the midship stairs have those commissioned maps going the full length of the Mississippi.
Yeah, I think we have James, we have a picture, I think.
The top to the bottom, and so you could really start and go see, where you can see it in the background there.
Yeah.
But the line of these maps as they go on down through the ship, and I think will be quite interesting. The other two stairs do different things, but this one does that map, which I think is fun.
It's beautiful. I mean, I love it because a lot of it would be quite. If there was nothing there, just bare wall, I don't think anybody would complain. But suddenly you've got a whole, and I know from experience, you one day you'll see something and you think, oh, I haven't noticed that bit before, and that's kind of interesting. And it's very it's enriching.
You can trace your itinerary, right? You can trace your voyage. And
better.
Here the river used to be over there. So I just found it fascinating. I thought as a piece of art, that from the 30s, that was kind of a time when even technical drawings like that had a certain art to it and a certain beauty in the way that they were produced. And why should that not be seen? Why shouldn't we be showcasing that? It's part of the cultural heritage that we have as a country.
And the staterooms, will they be similar to the ones on the rivers and oceans that we know, with all the same features?
Yeah, well, it's about comfort, and it's about being recognizable. And so I think people who've been on the ocean ship will recognize these. We do make modifications over time. We do make improvements and changes and things. So it's never fair to say it's a copy, but it is fair to say that they're going to take advantage of all the things that we have on this ship and how we use it and the ways we use it in ways that are recognizable, I think, is the answer.
Okay, great. There's a question here. I got vanity doesn't permit me from asking this one. Carol in San Diego says, I love the black and white photographs on the Viking ships and believe some of them are by Alastair. will you have some of his also on the Mississippi ships? Alastair it's not over yet, but Alastair seems to be almost a Viking signature. We love listening to him on Tuesdays with a cup of morning coffee. Carol, the check's in the post.
Exactly right.
I
have to say, Alastair, that one of my favorite memories, my favorite experiences ever with Viking ever, is going through the Star and the Explorers Lounge the first day with Captain Atle Knudsen. Is now he and his wife are great friends. They're lovely people. He's Viking's master captain, takes most of the new ships out for the first time around. And if you recall, to my props to Alastair, if you walk into the Explorers Lounge, one of the first things you see is this glorious photograph, and I think it's behind you there somewhere, of a sheep, right? Ram, right? Yeah. And Captain Knudsen looked at me and he said, "Oh, that's my brother's sheep." And I said, "What?" "Yeah, my brother. That's his ram." And two things occurred to me. First of all, is what are the coincidences in the world that you happen to run across his brother's sheep? But the second thing is, how did he know? How did Atle know? And he said, "Well, look at the horns, and it's gotta be, that's the bell and everything." But no, to answer to the question is, how could we not?
Oh, that's very
good. The photography is amazing, and we use it in all kinds of interesting ways. I think sometimes, I hope, Alastair, you're comfortable with how we've done this, but no, it's beautiful stuff. And to be honest, the trek that you did with Corinna over Finsa Mountain and the photographs that you took on that particular, that's still an inspiration. It's part of the Viking standards package that we use when we're talking to people about, what does Viking look like and where does it go? Those photographs are a big part of that, and I go back to it time and time again for inspiration. So,
that's nice. That's nice.
Absolutely, 100%.
That's nice. Well, that's enough about me, Richard. Let's. Well, we can't talk about the southern states, although this part, the Mississippi, without mentioning its amazing musical heritage. Yeah. Which is, I'm a particular fan of bluegrass myself. Tell us a little about how you've incorporated this into the design of the new ship.
Well, this is the storytelling, right? But it struck me that it's not just the southern states, but it's really interesting if you look at the stretch of the Mississippi, and we're going to be generous here in terms of taking area around it. But in New Orleans, not only did you get the birth of America's true contribution to world music, which is jazz, but you get the birth of it there. But also Muscle Shoals, not too far over, was the studios there were very much one of the hearts of early rhythm and blues, rock and roll. Aretha Franklin's, I think, one of her very first albums was recorded in Muscle Shoals. But as you go up the river, Memphis Blues, and Elvis Presley and all the rest, and further on up to you get into the northern environments, not too far from Detroit, you can kind of think about the history of American music as told as being part of this this tour through America's heartland. So the guy that I am, in terms of always looking for stories and inspiration, the living room on this ship is all about music. It's all about that contribution. And I think as you walk through it, you may not see it directly, but for those who may watch it and then ultimately go on a cruise, you'll notice that the divider screens, the decorative screens that separate seating areas, are in fact kind of guitar strings done on a very, very large, very, very large scale, and looks lovely and rational and nice as an architectural design. But it does come out of that basis. And then we're trying something on this ship, and I'm anxious to see if it'll work. I may get fired here if we talk about this one, but I'll say it anyway. We are doing something fun. If you go on the ships, and ships and hotels have a kind of rhythm to the way a day in the life works with them, right? That things happen. And what I've always been fascinated with is what happens after dinner, because people have their dinner and then it's to the living room or the Explorers Lounge. They'll have a cocktail, pianist will be playing. There'll be some dancing and some enjoying and conversations. But as you get later in the night, it goes kind of in a way of being even more. The crowds sort of thin out and people get a little looser, more energetic. So one of the things that struck me about in thinking about music is when I was a kid. How you experienced new music was on the radio, but it was also going over to friends' houses to listen to new records that they had just bought.
Yes.
One of the things we're putting into the ship is a turntable, and we're going to curate a selection of vinyl albums from the heart of the Mississippi, but things that are maybe recognizable to our guests, things that, I remember having this album. And so after our piano player or our evening's entertainment is done, I'm hoping that people will pull out their favorite albums and play them and dance the night away.
That's a wonderful idea. Yeah.
A great thing. We'll see if it all works. It's kind of a fun idea. I hope it does.
Well, I guess you see, we couldn't do that on an ocean ship because the needle would be rolling around all over the
might.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
this is about this is about the Mississippi, and I think this is something that might work particularly well here because I think again it's a cultural influence that is there. If nothing else, just flipping through the album covers would be a lot of fun, right?
Yeah, I mean, the music is such a big part of the story of that river. It's something, I look forward to discovering myself. Okay, fun little question, and we're nearly at the end of our time. But Amaya in San Francisco says, this has nothing to do with the Mississippi. She says, I love the sublime trolls in the elevator on Viking Sea. There must be a story. Do you know what that story is?
Oh, okay. Well, this is the part where I have to give the check to, no, it's... this is one of the, we were saying earlier, we want to find things that people don't discover until the very end, and the trolls trolls in general are a huge part of Norwegian culture, children's fairy tales and the stories that you might get. Trolls play a big part of that. And at the very end of the process, we were thinking of the design for the star. We were thinking about that these panoramic lifts go through 3 decks that are stateroom decks, and you don't get a view out. You get a view of the living room, and you get a view of the pool deck as you get toward the top. But at the bottom, between those 2 things, you're looking out at blank walls. So the birch forest showed up there, right? We put the birch trees in, and we thought that was really something pretty. And then I got to thinking, well, yeah, but is that enough, right? And because we were sort of toward the end of the process, it got to be that, well, we really need to talk about the people who did this ship, the people that put it together, and the people that are been part of the team. So all of those trolls, as you look out there, are all caricatures of Torstein and Corinna and me and Milton and John Ruston and all the people that were responsible. Alan Stewart, the architect who works with us at SMC. We all have our trolls. We're all buried in the trees. So the next time, if you have never seen these, we'll turn around and look out the window as you go past the birch forest, and you'll see, I'm on the port side. I will tell you about halfway up, hanging to my tree, is the answer. But I think that is one of those things that, it's a surprise and delight, right? It's something that you notice at the last minute maybe, and you just like, oh, I'd never seen that. This is really cool. I wonder what's that about. And thank you for letting me tell the story.
Oh, thank you, Richard. I mean, Amaya, in fact, she says in her question, I didn't see them until my last day, and took the elevator extra times to see them before I disembarked.
Well, that one, that is exactly
slam dunk. That one, yeah,
that is
great.
What's supposed to happen. And thank you, Sam. I'm glad you found them, and I'm glad that has been fun for you. That's what we aim to do.
Richard, it's been fun for us. It's been more than fun. It's been a pleasure listening to your design thoughts and insights. I know you have a super busy schedule, so thank you so much for taking the time out to have this conversation and for answering all those questions that came in. If you sent in a question and we didn't answer it, I'm sorry. I think we did most of them. But Richard, from myself and everybody watching. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you. And a quick shout out, by the way, to the Four Seasons Chicago. We are, my firm is redoing this hotel. It opens on Thursday, so I am here. But it'll be a quite exciting place for me. But more importantly for me is I think the opportunity to talk to everyone and to get the ships out and let people enjoy these spaces is what we're aiming to do. And the Mississippi is going to be an amazing experience. Really is going to be lovely.
I know. I can't wait. Richard, all the best. Take care of yourself. Thank you so much.
Good to see you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. So I don't know about you, but I really can't wait to get aboard that Viking Mississippi and experience not only the ship, all the ship will have to offer, but also all the fabulous places she'll sail to. So my thanks to all of you for watching. I'm looking at myself on the screen. I seem to be wildly sort of blurred and out of focus, which may be something to do with an internet connection. I'm sorry, I'll try and fix it for next week. But now I'm going to leave you with a little video that will illustrate a lot of what Richard was talking about, how the heritage of Norway and the Vikings is expressed in the onboard interior design. So check that out. And from myself and the hardworking Viking TV team, goodbye for now and see you next week.
Centuries ago, amid the rugged nature of Norway, the Viking Age was born. And as it flourished, exploration became a Norwegian tradition. Today, the ships of Viking follow in their wake, sailing from our Norwegian home port, Bergen. Built for discovery and comfort, these sleek vessels explore the far corners of the globe. But wherever we sail, we take a little bit of our homeland with us. If you care to look, you'll find many Norwegian influences on board. Spaces designed to immerse you in the destination and pique your curiosity, along with tributes to Norway's legendary explorers, complete with extensively curated libraries, chronicling the adventures of these brave souls who redefined our view of the world, and made us proud to carry on the Norwegian tradition of exploration. Of course, the original ships of the Viking Age, with their innovative clinker-built hulls, needed representation on board. Look closely and you'll discover elements of this streamlined design throughout our ships. The most significant is the living room, where the bar pays tribute to these Viking ships of long ago. And the chairbacks feature embroidered rosemaling, a type of folk art found on country furniture, as well as the bunad, Norway's national costume. The sweaters worn by some of our staff have a Norwegian connection too. They're knitted deep in the mountains by Dale and are based on a pattern Mamsen knitted for her son, Viking Chairman Torstein Hagen. Other hints of Norway are sprinkled throughout all our vessels, like this one based on a Viking Age brooch, or the stateroom blankets that feature the Marius pattern, possibly the most popular Norwegian sweater pattern of all time. And in the theatre you'll see the faces of acclaimed Nordic actors. We're especially proud to offer a daily programme highlighting the works of Norwegian master painter Edvard Munch. Known as Munch Moments, the collection is provided through an exclusive arrangement with the Munch Museum in Oslo, where we also offer our guests privileged access when in Norway. A more in-depth look at Norwegian history is found in our Viking Heritage Corner. Learn more about Viking adventurers on distant shores and what life was like for those who remained at home. It's the most comprehensive study of Norse culture you'll find at sea. In the Explorers Lounge, you're greeted by more iconic images from the Viking Age, spread across 2 decks. Stocked with abundant resources, this uncrowded setting is the perfect spot to delve into Norwegian history. But the Explorers Lounge is also home to a part of Norway found nowhere else. It's called Mamsens, a deli named for my beloved grandmother, serving some of her favourite treats and mine. Here you can sample traditional Norwegian waffles with gjetost, the brown goat cheese prepared just the way Mamsen did. The dishware is one of a kind too, an exact reproduction of a pattern resurrected just for Viking. The design my father used as a child at home while enjoying his Mamsen's waffles. Another significant piece of Norwegian history is found in our stairwells, where the walls are graced with excerpts from the Bayeux tapestry, a priceless embroidered cloth from the 11th century. It's nearly 230 feet long and depicts the events surrounding the Norman conquest of England. On the opposing stairwell walls, another treasure. Helleristninger, detailed reproductions of ancient rock art, similar to the more than 6,000 carvings in the Alta region of northern Norway. In the Live Nordic Spa, we embrace fire, ice, and natural elements, as we share Nordic traditions that have been passed on from generation to generation. Each treatment designed to soothe the body, comfort the mind, and relax the soul. Including a bathing ritual that dates to the Viking Age. Based on the Russian banya, it contrasts the heat of the sauna with a thoroughly invigorating period in the cold of either our snow room or under a revitalizing cascade of chilled water. For Scandinavians, a close connection to nature is an inspiring and essential part of everyday life. Out on deck, our ships reflect that philosophy. The spaces are tranquil, and the Aquavit Infinity Pool is designed to surround you with the lands you're sailing through. When it's time to dine, specialties from the regions you're exploring are plentiful. But Norwegian favorites were not forgotten, as we collaborated with our executive chef to develop a selection of authentic choices from our homeland. The inspiration for one of the most beautiful spaces on our ships came from Oslo, specifically the Vigeland Sculpture Park and its collection of remarkable wrought iron gates. Forged on site by sculptor Gustav Vigeland in the 1920s. On board, our gates feature key Viking destinations from around the globe, while providing a distinctive, memorable entrance to the iconic Winter Garden. Inside, the soaring wood sculpture represents Yggdrasil, the mythical Norse tree of life. The ravens are also from Norse mythology. Known as Hugin and Munin, they served the Norse god Odin, flying around the world, then returning back home, landing on Odin's shoulders, whispering secrets of what they learned abroad into his ears. The Winter Garden also has distinctive art, but it's just one of many spots on board to study the creativity of Norwegian artists. There are more than 700 pieces in all on every one of our ocean ships, in a diverse range of styles and mediums. It's the largest collection of Norwegian art at sea. Of course, the most essential Nordic influence on our ships is the Scandinavian nautical staff. They carry on our centuries-old passion for exploration and discovery, a love for the sea that extends back to the Viking Age. The ships of Viking offer an unparalleled window into the spirit and character of Norway and its people, a heritage we are very proud of, and one we hope you also will enjoy.